What if I told you that some gods don't want to save you, they want to own you, to break you, to consume every last piece of your soul? Today, we're diving deep into the most disturbing, most psychologically devastating depictions of forbidden deities in modern horror cinema. And I'm warning you right now, what you're about to hear will fundamentally change how you think about divine intervention. These aren't your typical demons or vengeful spirits. No, these are actual gods, cosmic entities that view humanity as nothing more than insects, tools, or worse, irrelevant accidents in their incomprehensible plans. So before we begin, I need to ask you something. Have you ever felt like invisible forces were guiding your life? Like you were being watched by something that understood you better than you understood yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because what we're about to explore might just explain that feeling. Let's start with what is arguably the most meticulously crafted and philosophically terrifying depiction of a corrupted deity in recent horror history, Paimon from Ari Aster's Hereditary. And listen, if you haven't seen this masterpiece yet, massive spoilers are coming. But more importantly, I'm about to reveal why this film works on a level that most horror can't even touch. See, Paimon isn't some made-up movie monster. This entity exists in actual historical demonology, specifically in the Ars Goetia, that medieval grimoire cataloging 72 demons that King Solomon supposedly controlled. But here's where it gets fascinating. Paimon isn't presented as a demon in the traditional Christian understanding. No, Paimon is royalty, one of the 8 kings of hell according to certain occult traditions. And that distinction, that specific detail, is absolutely crucial to understanding why Hereditary transcends typical possession films. Traditional demons in cinema want chaos, they want destruction, they want to corrupt and consume. But Paimon has patience. Paimon has a plan that spans generations. Paimon builds kingdoms. The film reveals that Ellen Lee, the grandmother, dedicated her entire adult existence, decades of meticulous preparation, laying the groundwork for Paimon's manifestation. This wasn't some spontaneous ritual performed during one dark night. This was a generational project, a devotion that transcended the lifespan of any single person. Ellen tried first with her son, then with her granddaughter Charlie, and finally, well, you know how it ends. But what elevates Hereditary above every other possession film is this: Paimon doesn't just want any body. Paimon specifically requires a male vessel, a suitable host for a king. And the film never moralizes about this requirement, never tells you it's unjust or wrong. It simply is. And that cosmic indifference, that complete absence of human moral judgment, that's pure Lovecraftian terror filtered through heartbreaking family tragedy. Now, let me point out something you probably missed on your first viewing. Every single element from the opening frame is constructed to reflect Paimon's fundamental nature. Annie's miniature houses aren't just clever visual metaphors, they're literal representations of how Paimon perceives humanity, as pieces on a board, as figures in a diorama that can be rearranged according to his divine will. Annie believes she's creating art, believes she has control, but in reality, she's unconsciously recreating the very ritual unfolding around her, trapped in a cycle she can't even perceive. And then there's Charlie. God, Charlie and that tongue click she makes constantly, that disturbing rhythmic sound. Do you know what that click represents? According to actual occult texts, it's the sound Paimon makes when invoked, which means Charlie was never really Charlie. From birth, from her first breath, Paimon was already there, waiting, watching, making that clicking sound like a subliminal reminder of his omnipresent influence. But what makes Paimon's depiction absolutely soul-crushing isn't his supernatural power, though he possesses it in abundance. It's how Ari Aster shows us this god destroying a family not from within, but from without, like a cancer metastasizing through generations. Each member of the Graham family carries the seed of their own annihilation, planted by generations of Paimon worship they didn't even know existed. Steve, the father, desperately tries to maintain sanity, tries to be the rational voice, but he's fighting forces he cannot begin to comprehend. Annie is being systematically manipulated by Joan, who isn't a concerned friend, but a devoted high priestess of Paimon's cult. And Peter, poor Peter, becomes the ultimate prize in this cosmic game. The final sequence of Hereditary is without exaggeration one of the most disturbing scenes ever committed to film, not because of graphic violence, though brutal moments exist, but because it shows us Paimon's triumph in a way that's simultaneously beautiful and absolutely repugnant, almost liturgical in its reverence. Peter, floating toward that treehouse, surrounded by naked worshippers bearing the marks of their devotion, with his decapitated sister's head wearing the crown. It's a coronation, a genuine religious ceremony, and the film treats it with the solemnity of actual sacred ritual. This is where Aster demonstrates absolute genius. He doesn't give us the typical good triumphs over evil ending, because Paimon was never evil in a conventional moral sense. Paimon is a god, and gods aren't constrained by human concepts of good and evil. They simply exist, their desires and needs transcending our morality entirely. And when a god chooses your bloodline, when divine eyes have marked your family, there is no escape. No exorcism will save you. No power of Christian faith can intervene, because Paimon is older, more fundamental than those belief systems. But there's something even more disturbing when you examine the actual mythology. In the Ars Goetia, Paimon is said to bestow knowledge of sciences and arts, to reveal cosmic secrets, to grant visions and profound wisdom. And if you pay close attention to Hereditary, you'll see this is exactly what manifests. Annie possesses almost supernatural talent creating those incredibly detailed miniatures. Charlie had that disturbing ability to craft art from found materials, those small unsettling toters. And even Peter in the end receives knowledge of his true identity, his ultimate purpose. Paimon doesn't destroy for destruction's sake. Paimon transforms, and that transformation demands a price no human being should ever pay. The film shows us that Paimon's cult promises transcendence, promises participation in something greater than mundane existence, but that transcendence requires total annihilation of your humanity, your family, everything you've ever loved or valued. And here's what should terrify you most. How many people in our actual world would make that sacrifice? How many? Desperate for meaning, for power, for simply feeling their life matters in the vast cosmic scheme, would give everything. Grandmother Ellen certainly did. Joan did. That entire congregation in the treehouse did. And they're not presented as insane or purely evil. They're shown as devoted believers who found purpose serving something greater than themselves. That's what makes Paimon so philosophically terrifying. It's not just supernatural horror, it's the horror of misdirected devotion, of blind faith, of the search for meaning that leads you to the darkest possible places. Hereditary asks you directly, how far would you go for something you genuinely believe in? What would you sacrifice? And if a real God with genuine power promised you a place in his eternal kingdom, could you possibly resist? The answer, according to the film, is devastatingly simple. No. When gods decide to act, when the divine directly intervenes in mortal affairs, resistance becomes impossible. Only surrender remains. Now, I want you to pause and think about this for a moment. If Paimon appeared before you right now and offered you genuine transcendence, real power, actual meaning in exchange for everything you love, what would you choose? Be honest with yourself and drop your answer in the comments, because this question reveals something fundamental about human nature. Let's shift completely in tone, but not in terror, to The Ritual, directed by David Bruckner and based on Adam Nevill's novel. This film presents us with Modur, spelled M-O-D-U-R, a creature that exists simultaneously as god and monster, a forgotten deity inhabiting Nordic forests where time itself seems suspended.
And this is where things become mythologically fascinating, because Jotun is an actual term from Norse mythology. The Jotnar were giants, primordial forces existing before the Aesir gods, before Odin and Thor and the pantheon we recognize. They personified primordial chaos, the untamed forces of nature itself. Moder, the creature from the ritual, is presented as one of these ancient beings, a bastard child of Loki according to the cult that worships her. But what makes Moder's depiction so viscerally effective isn't just her visual design, though God, that design is absolutely nightmarish. She's a fusion of deer, insect, and something vaguely humanoid with hands ending in claws where hooves should be. It's as if someone extracted the concept of a Wendigo and filtered it through Norse mythology, creating something that feels ancient, primordial, fundamentally wrong according to natural laws we understand. What makes Moder truly terrifying is what she represents within the film's deeper context. See, the ritual is fundamentally about guilt, about trauma, about four friends processing the violent death of their fifth friend, Rob, who died defending Luke during a store robbery. And Luke, our protagonist, is psychologically destroyed by guilt because he froze, because he did nothing, because he survived when Rob didn't. These four men decide to take a memorial hike through Swedish forests, a trip honoring Rob's memory. And this is where the film's brilliance begins revealing itself layer by layer. The Nordic forests in the ritual aren't merely setting, they're liminal space, places where normal reality's rules begin bending and breaking. There are marks carved into ancient trees, an omnipresent sensation of being observed, and eventually they discover that house, that damned house with the idol in the attic. That idol represents our first real visual introduction to Moder, and let me tell you, it's one of the most disturbing pieces of practical prop design I've encountered in modern horror cinema. A humanoid figure with deer antlers, multiple arms positioned in prayer or supplication, and something in its construction suggests both worship and profound suffering simultaneously. Here's the crucial detail. When the protagonists sleep in that house, they all experience nightmares, but not random nightmares. Nightmares specifically engineered to exploit their individual guilts, their deepest fears. This isn't coincidence. Moder isn't a simple predator hunting for food. Moder is a god, and gods in Norse mythology possess specific domains, specific spheres of influence. Moder's domain appears to be psychological suffering, guilt, the manipulation and exploitation of a person's deepest fears and traumas. She can infiltrate your dreams, show you your worst memories, make you relive your traumas in endless loops. And here's where the film demonstrates real intelligence. It shows us Moder isn't just physically hunting these men, she's evaluating them, testing them. Because when we finally encounter the cult worshipping her, we discover not everyone gets sacrificed. Some are chosen to become eternal guardians of the forest, immortal servants of Moder, frozen in perpetual worship within those ancient trees. And those guardians, God, those guardians represent perhaps the most disturbing imagery in the entire film. They're people, or what remains of people, fused with tree bark, kept alive by Moder's power, but completely stripped of their humanity, their faces frozen in expressions mixing agony with religious ecstasy. It's forced worship, it's violated transcendence, it's the concept of immortality perverted into the worst imaginable curse. Because here's the thing with Moder. She offers eternal life, but it's eternal existence as servant, obligatory worship, life with no purpose beyond glorifying a god the rest of the world has completely forgotten. The cultists worship her because she grants them power over death, but that power comes at a price so horrific it transforms blessing into curse, indistinguishable from the deepest L. The film is brilliant in using Moder as mirror for Luke's guilt. See, Luke is already trapped in his own loop of perpetual suffering, constantly reliving the moment Rob died, unable to forgive himself, unable to move forward. In a sense, Luke is already living the curse Moder offers: existence without peace, life with no purpose beyond continuous suffering. And when Moder finally speaks to Luke, when she tries forcing him to kneel, to worship her, to become one of her eternal servants, the film reaches its crucial philosophical moment. Because Luke must choose. He can surrender to his guilt, accept an eternity of suffering as penance for his perceived failure, or he can reject this forgotten God, reject the narrative that he deserves to suffer forever. The moment Luke screams no at Moder, that moment when he finally refuses to kneel, is probably one of the most cathartic sequences in horror cinema of the past decade. It's not traditional victory of good over evil. Luke doesn't defeat Moder in any real sense. In fact, she lets him go, allows him to escape the forest, but only because he's proven he won't submit, proven that unlike the cultists, he prefers death to eternal slavery. And here's the deepest philosophical reflection the ritual offers. Forgotten gods are forgotten for specific reasons, not because they lack power, but because they're relics of a darker, crueler form of spirituality. Moder represents the type of god demanding worship through fear, offering blessings indistinguishable from curses, promising transcendence but delivering only slavery. In actual Norse mythology, the Jotnar were eventually marginalized and conquered by the Aesir, by gods who at least maintained some reciprocal relationship with humanity. The Aesir protected their worshippers, the Jotnar simply consumed. And Moder, as a relic of that darker era, doesn't understand nor care between the difference between worship and terror, between devotion and enslavement. Before we continue, I need to ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. How much of yourself would you sacrifice for guaranteed meaning? How much suffering would you accept if it came with absolute purpose? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments, because this question gets to the heart of human desperation.
But there's something else here, something that makes Moder particularly relevant in our modern era. We live in times where many people feel their lives fundamentally lack meaning, where existence can seem empty or purposeless, and in that desperation, the promise of something greater, even something dark, can seem dangerously tempting. Moder's cultists aren't presented as evil, they're shown as desperate people who found something to cling to, even if that something ultimately destroys them. The ritual asks you, how much of yourself would you be willing to lose for the promise of meaning? How much suffering would you accept if it guaranteed purpose, even if that purpose is serving a forgotten god in a forest where no one will ever find you? And Luke's answer, his resounding no, reminds us that sometimes the bravest act possible is rejecting transcendence when it's offered at too high a price. Sometimes being human, with all our guilt and pain and mortality, is infinitely better than any form of corrupted immortality. And now, friends, we need to discuss Incantation, the 2022 Taiwanese horror phenomenon that went viral for reasons absolutely understandable once you experience it. This film is... how do I describe this accurately? It's brilliant. It's psychologically devastating, and it's probably one of the most innovative and culturally specific depictions of a forbidden deity in modern horror. But before diving into the film itself, you need to understand the cultural context, because without it, you can't fully appreciate how transgressive Incantation truly is. In Taiwanese Buddhism, there exists profound reverence for sacred figures, particularly for various manifestations of Buddha and the Bodhisattvas. The idea of profaning a sacred image, of depicting a Buddhist deity as malevolent or corrupt, is extremely taboo in that culture. So what does director Kevin Ko do? He creates Mother Buddha, or Dahe Tianmu, an entity presented as Buddhist deity, but clearly something completely different, something older and infinitely darker, hiding beneath the appearance of Buddhist divinity. And this is where things become simultaneously fascinating and absolutely disturbing.
The film is structured as found footage told by Ronan, a mother desperately trying to save her daughter from a curse she herself activated 6 years earlier when she violated a sacred taboo. But Incantation's genius is that it's not just traditional found footage, it's interactive. The film directly breaks the fourth wall and asks you, the viewer, to participate in rituals, to recite mantras, to help Ronan save her daughter. And here's the trick, the brilliant and absolutely terrifying twist. By participating, by reciting these words, you're potentially cursing yourself. Because that protective mantra Ronan teaches you at the film's beginning isn't protective at all. It's an invocation. It's a direct call to Mother Buddha, and every time you recite it, every time you help bless Ronan's daughter, you're spreading the curse, extending this entity's reach. It's meta-horror in its purest and most effective form. The film doesn't just show you a terrifying entity, it makes you complicit in its propagation. It's like a mimetic virus, an infectious idea spreading through observation and participation. But let's examine Mother Buddha herself, because this entity is fascinating from design and conceptual perspectives. What we see of Mother Buddha is fragmentary, obscured, never fully revealed. There are symbols resembling runes, but based on distorted Buddhist writing. Images of underground tunnels where a cult worships this entity, and that symbol, that damned symbol appearing again and again, a geometric pattern simultaneously beautiful and deeply unsettling. The film tells us the cult worshipping Mother Buddha is an esoteric sect preaching there are 6 invisible guardians surrounding each person, protecting them from malevolent forces. But these guardians enforce strict rules, taboos that must never be broken. And the most important taboo is, you must never see the true name or form of Mother Buddha. Of course, Ronan and her friends break his taboo. They enter a forbidden tunnel, discover a chamber where the cult performs rituals, and see something they should never have witnessed. The film never explicitly shows us what they saw, but consequences are immediate and devastating. One dies horribly, another descends into madness, and Ronan is cursed, a curse that will eventually transfer to her unborn daughter. Here's what's truly terrifying about Mother Buddha. She isn't malevolent in traditional understanding. She isn't a demon wanting destruction or a vengeful spirit seeking revenge. Mother Buddha simply is. She's a force, a presence existing beyond our moral comprehension. And when you violate her taboos, when you see her when you shouldn't, she doesn't punish you actively. You simply stop being protected. Those 6 invisible guardians leave, and you're left exposed to all the horror of the universe they normally keep you safe from experiencing. It's a terrifying concept because it inverts typical religious horror narratives. Normally in horror films, religious entities are protective if good, or demonic if evil. But Mother Buddha is neither. She's indifferent. The taboos exist not because Mother Buddha imposes them as punishment, but because there are fundamental rules of reality, and breaking them has natural, inevitable consequences. The film explores this through Ronan's relationship with her daughter. Ronan is desperate to save her daughter, to reverse the curse, to find some way to protect her, and in her desperation she turns to anything that might help, including asking for help from you, the viewer. She shows you videos of her daughter, asks you to bless her, teaches you that protective mantra. But here's the twist that makes Incantation so brilliant. Ronan isn't exactly lying when she says you're helping. The theory she presents is if enough people share the curse, if it's distributed among more and more people, then each individual suffers less. It's like diluting poison in water, still poisonous, but less concentrated. Is this morally justifiable? Does Ronan have the right to potentially curse thousands to save her own daughter? The film refuses easy answers. In fact, the film forces you to confront your own participation in this moral dilemma, because if you've been reciting the mantra, if you've been helping, then you're complicit too. And here's the deepest reflection Incantation offers. In our era of social media, viral information, memes, and shareable content, how easy would it be to spread a real curse? How many of us would share something without thinking about consequences simply because we're asked to help or because it seems harmless? Mother Buddha, in this sense, isn't just an entity of cosmic terror. She's commentary on how ideas, beliefs, concepts can spread like viruses, infecting mind after mind, changing reality simply by being observed and shared. The film also does something really intelligent with subjective reality concepts. There's a scene where Ronan explains that in esoteric Buddhism, there's a belief that reality is to some degree a mental construction, that what we perceive as real is influenced by our beliefs, expectations, fears. And if enough people believe in something, if enough minds focus on a particular idea, that idea can manifest in reality. This transforms Mother Buddha into something more terrifying than a simple monster or demon. Mother Buddha is a tulpa, a thought form that exists because it's believed in. Each person who recites the mantra, each person who sees the symbol, each person who thinks about Mother Buddha is feeding her, making her more real, more powerful. And the film ends with disturbing ambiguity. Did Ronan's plan work? Was her daughter saved by distributing the curse among countless viewers? Or did she simply condemn more people? The film doesn't give answers, and that's part of what makes it so psychologically effective. But there's another interpretation here, one that makes Incantation even more unsettling. What if Mother Buddha isn't a malignant entity at all? What if she's genuinely a protective figure, but one whose protection comes with strict rules that cannot be violated? In many Asian spiritual traditions, there are gods and spirits that are benevolent but demanding, offering protection but requiring perfect observance of certain taboos. From this perspective, Mother Buddha isn't the villain. The villains are Ronan and her friends who violated sacred taboos out of curiosity, who profaned a holy place, who rejected warnings and traditions simply because they didn't understand or respect them. And the consequences they suffer aren't arbitrary punishments, but natural results of their actions. This reading makes Incantation a cautionary tale about cultural respect, about the dangers of treating sacred traditions as curiosities, about how modern cynicism and skepticism can lead us to violate boundaries existing for very good reasons. And here's the final question the film leaves you with. Did you recite the mantra? Did you help Ronan? And if you did, how do you feel now knowing what you know? Do you regret your participation? Or do you feel you did the right thing trying to help a desperate mother? Incantation doesn't allow passive observation. It makes you part of the story, makes you complicit, forces you to confront the consequences of your actions, even if those actions are as simple as reciting words on a screen. And that, friends, is what makes Mother Buddha's depiction so terrifying and brilliant. She's not just an entity in a film, she's a concept that escapes the screen and infects your mind, a mimetic virus continuing to exist long after the final credits finish rolling.
Now, let's discuss something completely different, but equally fascinating. The smile entity, from that 2022 film that shocked the world with its viral marketing and terrifying concept. And I know what you're thinking. Is the smile entity really a forbidden god? Isn't it just a demon or malevolent spirit? But here's the thing. If you pay close attention to details, if you truly analyze what this entity is and how it functions, you'll realize we're witnessing something much older, much more fundamental than a simple demon. We're seeing a representation of something that has existed as long as humans have existed: trauma. Let me explain. The smile entity has no name, no known origin. We don't know when it began or where it came from. What we do know is it operates according to very specific rules, almost mathematical in their precision. It transmits from person to person like a virus, but not a biological virus. It's a psychological, emotional, traumatic virus. The rule is simple and absolutely terrifying. If you witness a traumatic suicide, the entity curses you.
You have approximately 1 week, maybe less, before the entity forces you to commit suicide in the most traumatic way possible in front of another person who then inherits the curse. It's a perfect, perpetual, unstoppable cycle. But here's what makes the smile entity truly a representation of the divine in its darkest form. It cannot be destroyed. It cannot be exorcised. It cannot be reasoned with. It's a fundamental force of existence as inevitable as death itself. And that inevitability, that permanence, is what makes it more God than demon. The film follows Rose, a psychiatrist who witnesses one of her patients' suicide and becomes the entity's target. And Smile's brilliance is how it uses this concept to explore real trauma, human trauma, the kind of psychological pain we carry as invisible scars. See, Rose was already traumatized before the entity cursed her. Her mother committed suicide when Rose was a child, and Rose was the one who found her. Rose has spent her entire adult life trying to fix other people, to save others, as a way to process guilt over not being able to save her own mother. And when the Smile entity chooses her, it's not random. It's almost as if the entity had been waiting for her, as if Rose was the perfect vessel for this particular kind of horror. The entity operates by showing Rose hallucinations of people smiling, but not normal smiles. These smiles too wide, too fixed, completely empty of genuine emotion. They're smiles that have become grimaces, expressions of happiness corrupted into something grotesque and terrifying. And here's the brilliant detail. The smile is the perfect mask. It's what we show the world when we want to hide our pain. It's the facade we maintain when we're dying inside. The entity takes that universal concept and perverts it, turns it into something monstrous. But the most terrifying aspect of the Smile entity isn't hallucinations or jump scares. It's what it represents thematically. The entity is unprocessed trauma manifested as supernatural force. It's the pain we keep inside that we don't confront, that we bury under layers of denial and coping mechanisms until it eventually consumes everything we are. Rose tries fighting the entity like any horror protagonist would. She investigates, looks for patterns, tries to find a way to break the curse, and she discovers something. The only way to escape is to pass it to someone else. If you kill someone in front of a witness, the entity transfers to that witness and you go free. It's a morally impossible way out, and the film never pretends it's a real option for Rose. But the fact that escape exists, that horrible and unethical escape, says something profound about real trauma. Because in real life, traumatized people often transmit their trauma to others, not intentionally perhaps, but inevitably. Abused parents abuse their children. Hurt people hurt others. Trauma spreads, extends, infects new victims in a cycle that seems impossible to break. And here's what makes the Smile entity truly divine in its horror. It operates on a level transcending human morality. It doesn't punish evil people or reward good people. It simply exists and propagates, indifferent to suffering it causes, following its own inexorable rules. There's a scene I find particularly revealing. Rose is talking to her therapist, trying to explain what she's experiencing, and the therapist suggests it might be a psychotic episode. That stress of witnessing her patient's suicide triggered a mental breakdown, and Rose can't prove him wrong. She can't demonstrate the entity is real because all symptoms of being cursed are indistinguishable from symptoms of being mentally ill. This is genius because it reflects how real trauma works. When you're in the middle of a traumatic episode, when you're reliving past events, when your brain is trapped in fear and anxiety responses, it can feel exactly like being possessed by external force.